Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back in the video today, and today the Pittsburgh Steelers are signing 9-time Pro Bowler and 1-time Super Bowl champion Russell Wilson after Russell Wilson was cut by the Denver Broncos, and this is an amazing signing right here by the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know what happens next with the Pittsburgh Steelers' future on who's the quarterback, whether it's Kenny Pickett or it's Russell Wilson. I'm actually really interested to see what happens to Mason Rudolph now. I know that's probably something that y'all are thinking, Mason Rudolph? Why are you thinking about Mason Rudolph? Because if you guys remember early on in the offseason, I believe this was like the day or two after the Super Bowl, there was reports going out there that a lot of Steelers players, maybe over 50% of the locker room, wanted Mason Rudolph to start. Now, the word was going around that they wanted Mason Rudolph to start over Kenny Pickett. But I don't know if that goes the same thing for Russell Wilson. I'm not saying Mason Rudolph is going to become the starter. I'm wondering now what happens to him. Does Mason Rudolph still stay on the team? They potentially trade him or release him. I think it would be interesting to see what happens with him, just because the fact that they've kept him throughout the last couple years while they still had Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett. Like Kenny Pickett's rookie season in 2022. Mitch was supposed to be the starter that year, and they had Kenny Pickett as the backup, as the rookie quarterback. Eventually, Kenny became the starter. Mitch became the backup in the beginning of the season, and Mason Rudolph stayed as the team as the third quarterback. Now that since the Brock Purdy rule became a thing that you have the emergency quarterback, I don't see why they would get rid of him, but unless he has any value, any value. But honestly, getting to Mason Rudolph, which I'm not going to talk about him for that long. I would keep him because, look, Kenny Pickett, it felt like every other game that kid was having an injury problem. He had to leave the game for something, an ankle, whatever it was, concussion. He gets injured constant, and even if he's not the starter, you have a backup that gets injured constantly. You have a starter. Let's say Russell is the starter. You have a starter who might not play well, might struggle, and in the last couple seasons, at the end of the year, it's caused him to get benched in both of his last couple seasons with the Denver Broncos. And then you have another quarterback who's made mistakes in his first couple seasons of his career and also gets injured a lot. So I would keep Mason Rudolph if I were the Steelers, unless you get a good offer for him. But getting into Russell, I've loved this signing, and this is an amazing signing for this exact reason. The amount of money they are giving Russ, it's a one-year deal. It's a minimum contract. They are giving Russ $1.1 million. That is a steal. I mean, with the money that Russell Wilson was getting paid before, it was outrageous. But this is a steal for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think that Russell Wilson would play a lot better with the Pittsburgh Steelers compared to his current offense. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, they have their flaws, but they're a lot better. They're a lot more better than the Denver Broncos. Now, they're a little bit inefficient. They do have some guys that are inefficient on their roster offensively, but hey, you can go look at the Denver Broncos and look at someone like Jerry Jeudy. I know he just got traded to the Browns the other day, but he's someone else who was very inefficient on that offense as well. So you got a guy like George Pickens. I would think now that he has a good quarterback in Russell Wilson, I'm just going to only assume he is the starter. Because, in my opinion, if Russell Wilson and Kenny Pickett get in an open competition battle, Russell Wilson is going to win that all day. I think Russell Wilson having a guy like George Pickens, I think it'd be for Russ. I think it'd be a lot like him having a guy like DK Metcalf back. Funny enough, they wear the same number, and I think as much as I like Courtland Sutton, another guy who wears the number 14. I think George Pickens has more potential than Courtland Sutton, as good as Courtland Sutton is. And he's a good deep threat as well. And he reminds me a lot like DK Metcalf. He has he has similar speed to DK, and he's a good deep threat. I mean, and he has great hands too. So I think having a wide receiver like George Pickens, I think George Pickens is the best wide receiver Russell Wilson has had since he left to Seattle. That's no disrespect to Courtland Sutton, because I love Courtland. I think he's an unbelievable wide receiver. He made some unbelievable catches in 2023, but I think George Pickens has some potential. He just has to stay efficient. That's the only problem. Now, there's some buzz about Deontay Johnson. Will he get traded? Will he stay? Does the Russell Wilson news, does that make anything better? I don't know. But Deontay Johnson's another great wide receiver to have if Russell Wilson is the quarterback. And then you have a really solid tight end in Pat Freiermuth, a guy I really like. And then the talent at the running back position with Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren's a great receiving back as well, so that will be another weapon for Russell Wilson. And then do we have to talk about the defense? I don't even think that has to be mentioned. The Pittsburgh Steelers' defense is way better than the Denver Broncos' defense. Even though the Denver Broncos' defense was really solid throughout the year, the Steelers' defense is still way better, and I think Russ would definitely have a better defense behind his back. But yeah, Russ, he wasn't even that bad in 2023 if you really look at it. I just think he really just didn't meet the Denver Broncos' expectations. Their expectations were to make the postseason. He didn't do that. They were paying him way too much money for a guy who was, yes, putting up good stats, but B, he wasn't, they weren't making the postseason. And with the money he was making, good stats, that's great. That's something with you. But the team's not winning ball games. If the team was winning ball games, it looked like they had a shot to win, to get to the postseason. But they went 7-8 with a guy that was making that much money. You don't keep a guy like that, even with good stats. Through over 3,000 pass yards in 15 games of 15 starts, had a 7-8 record through 26 passing touchdowns and 8 interceptions. It was way better than his first season with the Denver Broncos. He also played less games too. He threw 10 more touchdowns with the Broncos in 2023 than he did in 2022, and he played more games in 2022 than he did in 2023. He also threw less interceptions, more yards, so it was a way better year, and completion percentage went up too. It was a way better year for Russ, but the team did not make the postseason. That was their expectation, bringing in Sean Payton as the head coach. So I think with the Steelers, with Mike Tomlin, a great head coach, Russell Wilson as the quarterback, and a good offense and a great defense, I think the Steelers with Russell Wilson will be able to make it to the postseason. If they were able to make it to the postseason with inefficient quarterback play, whether it was Mitch Trubisky or it was Kenny Pickett or Mason Rudolph, they'll be able to make the postseason with Russell Wilson, for sure. Let me know your thoughts on... and also, one more thing. When Russell Wilson was going to get traded the first time, that's where I wanted Russell to go to Pittsburgh the first time he was going to leave. When he was going to leave Seattle, I thought that was the best fit for him, and we never saw it happen. The Broncos got him, but if I'm correct, that was the year after Ben retired, and I thought Russ was a perfect fit. He would be the replacement. He'd be the replacement to Big Ben. I thought he'd be a big fit. He'd be a nice fit. That first round pick they drafted, Kenny Pickett, I thought trade that first round pick to get Russ, and then there's your future for the next couple of years. But they didn't do that, and now they have Russ. Let me know your thoughts on the signing in the comment section, and peace out.